Hey y'all, welcome to Other Realm Studio. I'm Paula and this is a hand study. I'm going to work on this in a little bit, but I thought I'd better warm up with some hands. So hands are really important. They're nearly as important as, well, I guess they're just as important as faces. Because it is so easy to fall into the uncanny valley, which is when you know something should look one way, and instead of looking cute or cartoony, it's just gone weird. Somewhat like the first designs for the new Sonic movie. So I can go ahead and show what I do for the hand studies. It's kind of a mechanical process because there's a lot of moving parts to hands. Oh, hang on just a second. There, that's clicked. Okay, so a lot of moving parts to hands. So usually what I do is I make a box, cool rectangular box, and that is the space underneath. Like if you're holding up your hand and looking at it, this is the base of your fingers. And then you have a wedge. So there's a wedge that goes from that box down to the wrist area. Now it's not going to be flat. You're going to pick one of these sides to put the thumb on, and please try to remember which side is going to need the thumb. I started off with a couple of left hands, interestingly, with these two up here near the top, and then I decided to try some right hands. And this is a couple of different positions for the thumb to take. Like right through here, and out and then back in again. So then the thumb is going to start about 2/3 of the way up from the wrist to allow you to know where your thumb muscle is going to go. So the base of the thumb is going to come up and follow mostly along the side of your wedge, and then you have to decide where your thumb knuckle is going to go. So I'm going to curve this one in just a little. And so remember also that your fingertips are going to be a little tapered. Keep in mind where the fingernail belongs. It's going to be on top of the finger. Let me erase that so it's a little more clear. Oh, and I fixed my sidebar with my tools. I almost had it last time, after I messed it up last time. But I had this whole line of all my different tools, and it was all stacked up on top of here, and it looked wrong and I didn't like it. So I have fixed that. Okay, so you can decide on a lot of different places for your thumb to go. Just remember that it has to be attached to the base of the hand, and that it's also going to stretch and compress across the palm when you get into doing your details. See, I could go out like this. And also some people's thumbs, they actually curve and bend back a good bit. Like mine will do this. Like this much of a curve to it. But everybody actually has a little bit of a difference in the range of motion, especially for the thumb. And you can actually get as much variation in hands as you can in faces. Everybody's got a different hand, you know. Age shows in the hands first a lot of the times. How well you're hydrated at the time, that'll show. Yeah, how muscular your hands are. And across the back of your hands, like this one's got the back, like your veins are gonna come out and be unique to you. Okay, so speaking of the uncanny valley, I have a relatively detailed thumb here and a palm and a box. Don't like the box. So it's good to have the box though. It sets the size of your hand and the spacing of your fingers. So you're going to start with where your knuckles go and make sure you have enough room to fit 4 circles. This is where your first knuckles are going to be. And you got knuckles here as well. And this is really where you're going to decide how far apart are the fingers going to be spread, or if they're going to be close together. And then also, you can also do a little guideline like a mitten shape to remind yourself that these fingers are not going to be the same length. And then all it is as simple as connecting the dots. And then you can add in detail and make it pretty and erase out all your little guidelines. Oh, there goes autosave again. So it's getting kind of weird to do these as art tutorials or anything like that, because most of the people on my friends list are more experienced with me at drawing digitally, or more experienced than I am at drawing digitally, and I have some professional artists who've actually worked in the industry. And it's weird. I feel like I don't have anything to say. And some of my methods may not be exactly right or the most orthodox means of creating an effect. There might be a much easier way to do the things that I try to do. And there probably is. But you can't go through life apologizing for not knowing enough yet, because you will never know enough. There is no such thing as enough. There's no such thing as done practicing. There's always going to be somebody better. There's always going to be somebody more experienced. And there's always going to be somebody a little down lower than you who might actually need some of this. That at the level that I'm able to teach it or demonstrate it. Also over here you can see I'm going to trace over this in blue. With my first hand that I did, which turned out to be a pretty natural shape, I did the box in this shape right here. Yeah, I could have boxed in like right underneath the fingers, but instead I did this shape to start with, and that was enough to get me going and place the fingers and the thumb where I wanted it to go. So it helps to draw a sort of a box in order to get yourself thinking in 3 dimensions. So if you can draw a little box like this, and just make sure that it's a little smaller at one end for the wrist, then you can build out a hand from it. And then it's just, sculpting it from there. Like if you're going to carve some wood, then you start with a block of wood in 3 dimensions, and then you carve away everything that's not what you want. Just smooth it out. So anyway, that's a study on hands real quick. Yeah, the shape of this particular thumb right here is still a little awkward. There it goes. Okay, don't forget, I will be running a Kickstarter for enamel pens. We will be able to pre-order those in a couple months. But if you have an opinion on whether we should do the sea unicorn or the baby dragon, leave me a note in the comments. Let's see, so today, well, last night I got a good start on this fairy. It went pretty quickly, and I was pretty excited about it. But, you know, I gotta sleep sometime, so I had to quit. So today I wanted to get into some details and a few corrections. Yeah, as you can see, my hands are not terrific on this fairy, so I do want to fix that, but I don't know if I'll get to it tonight. Come on, zoom in on that. There it goes. Okay, this I drew on a vector layer, and it really does. It looks very smooth. But I don't really love vectors for details. I'm not used to that at all. So I was going to see if there's anything that I should do with any more small lines for details in black, or maybe I should start colors. So I do think that it's important not to add too many lines, or else you risk aging your character too much. So let me poke around here and see what else may need to be done. See, I could put a new layer in and start some colors. So this is always fun, doing flat colors and seeing an immediate drastic change. I could go with like a realistic skin tone, or I could do something a little different. That's a little vivid. Now, I did something like this with a mermaid, but I don't know. Should we go this way with fairies? Looks a little too Avatar to me. Okay, this is a less realistic skin tone. Nope, nope, I accidentally hit the... Yeah, there it went. Okay. Let's see. Oh, that's plenty. Okay. And I think I want to leave the wings a little blank for right now, and maybe something in the bright tones for hair. It'll be cute. So let's see, she could be a strawberry blonde or a blonde blonde. Or we could go some completely different direction with that. Or cherry redhead. So we'll do a new layer. We will change that from normal to multiply and add in some shading. Now I've done a lot with the oil paint, not so much with the India ink. And I really think that it's going to bleed a lot if I do that. So it's probably safest to go in and select, and that way I won't paint outside it. See, let's try the watercolors. Let's see if anything looks about right. I mean, it's got potential, but I don't love it. It might just be that I just really like the oil paint effect, but I need to be a little more versatile. So let's see how we do with the regular watercolor brush. And I'll try to remember to leave the texture in and not try to blend so much. Which, I don't know, that might be the opposite of my problem with oil paints, because I don't refine them a whole lot. So what I'm going to start off with is some basic blocking of where my shadows ought to fall. See, really what I need to do is correct this before I start in coloring. It's fine though. So today has been kind of a weird day for me. I got really tired. And so now I'm still trying to figure out what I can get done with my day. Let's see, I do have some good news. The Kickstarter funds are being processed. They haven't shown up in my account yet, so I can't order more boxes just yet. But I will be able to shortly once the bank finishes processing them. So I was going to try to do more of a leaf effect on this skirt, and I'm still working out exactly how that's going to happen. So I think what I'm going to do with it first is, well, in addition to blocking out the shadows, I'm going to keep in mind how the veins of the leaf are going to go and try to make the brush strokes reflect that. Along with also reflecting the drape of the material. So I might need to pick one thing to have an effect. So let me see. I may need to look into, let's see, probably not into that one, but possibly into some of the hatching and spray effects. Some of this is really cute. I might actually end up using this. So I got an email from Zazzle today about, oh, that's a pen. Wait a minute. Let's go back to the brush. Just so used to working in the pen. About changing the way my royalties are paid on my Zazzle shop. And I really haven't done a lot with my Zazzle shop lately, so I thought maybe I should revisit it and, you know, really research what it is they're asking me to do with it. And if I'm going to be spending a lot of time on Zazzle, then I might as well come up with a few more designs to go on here. And I kind of thought it would be fun to do some cartoony fairies and unicorns and, you know, other mythical creatures. So I might end up putting this on Zazzle somewhere. Okay, what have we got to work with? Should I try a different brush for the skin? Because I don't think that I like the texture for rendering skin tones. So let's back way out of that. I did give it an honest try. Actually, what I could do is just swipe over it with the eraser because it is in a completely different layer. Yeah, we're going to go back to oil paint. So I haven't really tried to do an unusual skin tone with realistic shading in it. So that could be fun. Let's put this right here and now, I'm not a fan at all of the infamous Tumblr red nose technique. But, you know, the nose can have a bit more of a rosy tint to it. A little bit. Not a ton. Not like making it look like the character's been crying. Let's see. I think I have a little too much shading on that side. And we can just pull out and blend that just a little. Okay. So this does look a lot like her face has gotten a lot darker. So I think what I need to do is pull my highlights back out gently. There we go. Right across the tip of the nose and right here. And go back and blend it, but with a smaller brush, like right around the edges, so that we don't lose the shape. And then I can come back later with the highlighting. Now, Clip Studio Paint has a tool that will do automatic shading. And that would be very interesting, and sometimes it turns out very scary as well. So, let me see. If I show about where I want my shading to go, and then I do the contour line paint, yeah, that's just a little bit too tan. Still, I am not quite sure exactly how this is supposed to go. But you know, if you don't add in the extra paint, it does nothing when you go to shade it. Let me see, will I figure this out this time? Nope. Still have not figured it out. So yeah, at some point what I really need to do is buy a book on this. Figuring it out a little bit at a time on my own is taking forever. So in my comic, I'm mostly using cell shading, which has, you know, very defined lines to it. But I don't really love those for shading all the time. It does work pretty well because I have a fairly cartoony style for it. Now, I really like it. It's got a nice balance between cartoony and realistic. And it's very fun and it's full of life, which I think is what comics and cartoons should aim for. Otherwise, why are we even bothering with portraying stories with that if it's not going to look like it's alive and moving in some sense? So yeah, Mia's line art is much smoother than mine, but I'm getting there. I have improved somewhat. And I've done a lot of practice on the coloring as well. So there is that. So I like where I've gone with the contouring and the paint here. Probably more than the face. And I don't know that I'm going to work on this arm because I feel like I need to entirely redo it. I don't know if I do. It might just be this line that's bothering me right here across the back of the forearm. Oh, now that I've got colors on this, it's always fun to see what does it look like without the lines. It's still pretty cute. So I might end up doing what I usually do and just take out the lines. And yeah, let's put them back. And just have it all just be the color. Because if the lines are the worst part of it, and you can see what it is and it looks better without the lines, then why not just get rid of the lines and go back and define it a little bit more in the coloring, which has kind of been my usual technique, if we're going to call it a technique. Either way, it still works because I get to practice working on my line art, on my digital line art, and painting until I get something I can use. Let's see, even if the hands or other lines aren't perfect, there's still a lot I can do to correct or accommodate imperfect lines with the color and the contouring, which I think is probably the biggest role that colorists have now. If you have a colorist who's an artist and not just somebody who's filling in the blanks, then you have somebody who's going to notice the shortcomings of the line art, which there always will be something going on with it. And you can mitigate that with color. Like you can say, well, this line, this looks really awkward, and even though you can tell that if you drew that from life, it still looks really awkward as line art, because line art does tend to make things look flat. Then once you have your coloring and your shading on it, then it really helps you put your perspective back where it belongs. So that you can see it as it's meant to look. See, I think I can go a lot bigger with this blending brush. Okay, so I am looking at this like, wow, she's really orange. Oh yeah, I kind of chose to make her orange because she's pumpkin-y. I don't know why she needs to be a pumpkin. Maybe it's her hair. But this is also me practicing doing a realistic texture on a slightly unrealistic skin tone. Yeah, watch me get back to this when I redo my mermaids in green and blue and purple. I'm going to add in some of my shadows again because I think I blended them out a little too aggressively. And I need to go back in between these fingers with a much smaller brush and attempt not to blend that much at all. So let's go with a very small brush or blender. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. And now I do feel like I need to do a lot more with the face. Yeah, it's going to be hard to select it now. Hang on, undo that. Hide this layer. Hit it again. Bring the layer back, and now everything is selected that needs to be selected. I can also hide the layer that I've done the flats on and see where all my shading is, and I can hide the multiply layer if I need to select anything with just the black and white line work. Okay, so right in here, I like her nose. It's really cute. One of my nieces has a nose very similar to this. I always thought it was the cutest thing ever. And I'm just gonna work on the lips with a little bit of the reddish shade. I don't want to make them stand out too much. So we'll come back in with the very small blending brush and blend out the edges. Remember that the upper lip is a little longer and a little darker than the lower lip. And in order to make the lower lip stand out more, you need to leave the center of it lighter. So let's see. I kind of like where the lips are right now without messing with them too much more. The chin could use a little more work. I should maybe shade that a little bit. So I'm going to go with light grayish that's closer to the yellow end of the color chart here. To do a slightly different dimension to the shading. As you know, there's going to be more red in places like the lips and the tip of the nose, and even a little bit around the eyes, like in the corners, and also up here around the hairline, since it's going to be casting more of a red shade. But the other shaded areas don't necessarily need that much red. Oh, and also a little bit of a redder tone beneath the cheekbones for blush. But we're going to do a little bit of a bronzer effect, actually. You know, one of the things that you have to watch out for with bronzer and makeup, you know, in real life, not in painting, you have to make sure you're not just making your face look dirty. So it's a good idea to do a light touch with the more yellow or brown shading. So just blend that out gently. And try not to let it get everywhere. Okay, oh yeah, and the other spot that might want a little bit more of a red shade is near the tips of the ears. I noticed in the animated movie Megamind, Will Ferrell, he's blue, but he's a cartoon, so it didn't look terribly weird. I noticed that they took so much care with his very blue skin tone to make him look real. And they put a little bit of a pinkish blush tone to the tips of his ears. It was kind of endearing. It was a really good effect. And yeah, you do need to remember that your ears get a lot of circulation. A lot of times when people blush, it's the most apparent in their ears. So a little bit of a pinkish shade right there. And that's probably all for tonight. It's 10 o'clock, so I gotta go. But thank you for watching, and I'll be back tomorrow night, and I'll be back again on Monday as well. So don't forget, sometime around the end of July, the beginning of August, I hope to start doing some enamel pins. Please vote. Would you rather see the sea unicorn or the baby dragon? And also, right down here at the bottom of this page, zoom in on this, do it properly. There we go. My website is www.otherrealmstudio.com. I have a newsletter there. Please sign up for it. I'm hoping to have some news very soon for you. So, that'll be it for tonight. And thank you again for watching. Come back and see me. And I'll see you in the other realm. Good night.